Hey, I'm Christa.
Hey, I'm Micah.
Welcome to Bad People
With good stories.
This is a podcast that seeks to challenge black and white thinking
by exploring the gray.
And today we have a beautiful guest on the podcast. She is my friend Nat, and we met a couple of years ago. We've been friends for a few years now. We met at a baby shower randomly. And since then we've kind of been fast friends, and she is really inspiring in my life. I think she is one of the most adventurous, fun, courageous people that I know, and is very creative as well. But she's been through a lot in her life, and I'm really excited that we get to chat to her today and just hear some of her experience with grief and other things as well. So welcome, Nat. We're so excited to have you here with us.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited.
Yeah. I think we would love to just get started by kind of, who are you in this moment? Like, tell us a bit about Nat.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think 2020 was the year that everything changed in my life. It's really hard to kind of summarize it, because the weight of what happened was such trauma and tragedy. You know, I was in my mid-30s, 3 beautiful children, and I became a widow. So yeah, that was crazy amidst COVID.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, I lost my dad 4 months later. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of what happened. And yeah, that's so intense. 2 losses at a very significant level. Within 6 months, when I first heard that story, when I met you, I would never have known you were going and had recently been through such grief. But I guess that's kind of what we want to dive into today, because grief is not necessary. Yeah, it just looks different and manifests differently for everyone. But do you want to tell us a little more of that story of losing Gareth, your husband?
Yeah, definitely. It was when it happened.
Yeah, definitely. The start of the year was like any year, 2020 just started off I had a baby at the time, actually. So, he was born the previous year and only a few months old. And I just remember the first start of the year being really crazy, because as I was becoming a mama of 3, my dad suddenly told me he had pancreatic cancer. So really, I thought that whole year I'd be traveling to Australia to visit him, potentially say goodbye to him. And that anticipatory grief was beginning. So that was really hard. And yeah, the shock of actually what happened after, while I was sort of navigating that pre-grief of losing my dad, I can't even put into words. It's I think the magnitude of suddenly losing my husband, it was like any other day. We actually had a date night. It's a beautiful date night. And we hadn't had one since Asher was born. So yeah, so we were so grateful, and we really needed it. And we went to IKEA, did just things that were just special to us, right? And yeah, after dinner, we took some cute little selfies and videos, and I posted them. We picked the kids up, we went home, and then he went on his sort of evening bike ride or afternoon bike ride, which he loved doing. And he didn't come back. And you'd never think it's going to happen to you. And that's the honest truth. And I will say that whole first 24 hours is such a blur, because it's intense trauma where you're just in utter shock. And I somehow was able to call various people and tell them what happened while it was 11 p.m. at night. So, that's just kind of the depths of that first moment of when it happens.
Yeah.
And then as the weeks unfolded, I realized, shit, I'm a widow now. I have a 9-month-old baby and then a 4-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter that has lost their dad, their whole world. And then 4 months after, to lose their granddad as well. So, yeah, it's absolutely tragic. And I even like tear up sharing this story because even though it's my story and it's so real to me, I'm still like, how did that happen? Why is this my life?
Yeah. Yeah, it must be always so strange in a way, like, because it's something that you would never wish or dream or even anticipate happening. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you remember like some of your initial reactions? Was it kind of like just you froze, or did you cry, or like what was that like for you?
Absolutely. It was
Or you kind of just like, numb?
all of the above,
Yeah.
I'd say. It was a very natural and normal flooding of emotions.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of tears, a lot of shock. Very grateful that I had support come my way because I was on such survival mode.
Yeah.
Like it's really true when you go through something like that, you can't even brush your teeth. You can't do simple things. So you've got people reminding you to eat, to drink water. Because I will be very honest, I myself wanted to die in that moment. Yeah, it's a very dark moment. And my saving grace, or what kept me going, was the purpose of motherhood. I'm like, I can't give up. I literally acknowledged that very quickly. Like second day, I was like, I can't give up. From now on, I have to keep getting up in the morning and just take each day on, whatever that may entail. So I guess it's weird, and maybe not everyone goes through it the same way I did, obviously, but I had this fighting spirit within me very early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's something I admire about you, because I think, I see that a lot, like in you and telling the story. I mean, you've always been really open about it with me, and I think that's beautiful too, because it's like hard. It'll always be hard to share, but just reflects to me like how much love you had for your husband and what a special person he was. So like, yeah, I'm sorry as well. I know that's such a like cliche thing to say, but yeah, it's just that shouldn't happen to anyone.
I wish you could have met him.
I know. I wish I could have met him too. And
That's amazing.
I feel like I know him to an extent of like through photos.
Yeah,
Every like all the stories you've told me, and I feel like I know him to a degree, which is beautiful. But yeah, sorry, I didn't.
You're afraid to tear up. Like,
no, yeah,
it's hard.
yeah.
But no, I feel honored to even share about him because he was an incredible man, and that's how he lives on through the story that I'm going to keep telling. So thanks for having me on here. This is like really big and special for me.
Just to have you be so like vulnerable with us, and then obviously with other people. And I know the first time that you and I met, it was more so was at that Lainey.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Lainey. Yeah, I know, it was so fun.
It was so fun, but where you kind of took a chance on me and decided to, I don't know, we had to stand in that huge line. And in this story, I mean, you shared this with me, but then you also told me that this all happened during COVID, which for me was crazy. Like also, your father did not live in the same city that you lived in not just a different continent as well. And so that you had to experience not only these losses, so far away, but then also where you had to isolate, and you had to do that during the pandemic. And so even just understanding, the rest of us going like, oh, COVID was so hard. I don't know how, like you have always just demonstrated such grace, but just how do you sort of view that when people say like, oh, COVID kind of nearly killed me or took me out? And I've just, again, seen just such kindness, how you kind of go, yeah, okay. But how was that for you truly?
Yeah, no, good question. There was a lot of anger within me. That's actually one of the most potent emotions that manifests from such loss. And especially when a lot of people were also going through things, obviously, the unknown the fear that was surrounded, at that time with COVID, the isolation. I mean, I had to go into a hotel quarantine with my 3 kids and my brother who came from LA. So 5 weeks after my husband passed away, I'm on a plane to Australia to say goodbye to my dad. So I felt, the ripple effect and the tragedy of COVID and how that affected people's lives. But I guess on the other side of things was perhaps people complaining about it, trivializing it, maybe just, going, oh, that's shit and this is shit. And I'm like, do you want to hear my story? Yeah. Like, I get it and it's okay. I don't want to gaslight you with that. But it's, other people were going through loss, whether it was due to COVID directly or other things in life. I think what it made me learn, because no one taught me how to be a widow. No one explained this is what you're going to feel and go through. It's so raw and organic and real in the moment that I caught myself often going, oh shit, like, whoa, this feeling feels so uncomfortable and this is what I'm wrestling with today. And then tomorrow it's something else. And it's like layers and layers upon these like new things that are arising within me. And I'm like, whoa. And a lot of that was a response to how others made me feel, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, again, in that lineup where we had, I want to say like an hour to chat, but you're just so candid kind of. And that's the big part of wanting to have you on the podcast was just sort of how you were experiencing tragedy and then the grief that came with that, and how a lot of times people and how they were experiencing that alongside you, whether it was projection or trying to offer, again, these simple platitudes of like, God is in control, pray, rest on him, peace. Like, I mean, even this morning we were having a bit of that conversation, or even just the practical needs of like whether they were bringing meals, but then also thinking, well, one of the things that struck me was that people, came and begged all of his clothing, or I remember telling you that. And again, like that visceral kind of like, so do you want to sort of speak to just the response and how difficult, not only were you dealing with your own pain, but then also how people were casting things on you and how, what was that really like?
I want to sort of preface it by saying like, I realize society is really uneducated about grief. So I had to learn a lot of grace, but initially I didn't have the capacity for that. So my reactions were very, candid and raw in that moment. And I gave myself permission to feel that too. So, when you're going through such loss, first of all, if you don't want anything to change, you haven't even accepted or acknowledged that this is your reality because of the shock and trauma. And I think that PTSD actually, it lasts a long time because, I mean, I don't mind sharing the fact that, he was riding his bike and it was an accident. And so it just happened like that. And I did not have time to process it. People suddenly flooded my house and then showed up with amazing intentions. They were my village at the time and showed up with meals. They all used their strengths and giftings in different ways. Like I had a friend that was really good at logistics and was calling the coroner and really heavy stuff that I could not do. The funeral director, a lawyer, like very intricate, crazy details that, I definitely couldn't do alone. And then my brother flew from LA and became the uncle and kind of stepped in to help with the kids a lot. And then other friends thought they were helping. This is really hard for me to share because, I mean, this is also 4 years ago now. But I also want to hold space to how that made me feel. Again, the onus was on me to educate them on what was inappropriate. And unfortunately, us all being human, people did get offended if I was like, what the heck? Like, I did break down when his toothbrushes were put away because, and certain friends thought, no, but that's the right thing to do.
So even that, can I say, like, friends came over to just pack away his stuff.
Yeah, which I had no idea about.
Okay,
I guess, like, thinking that it would, thinking it would help, like, that, But, you can't delete a person. At that moment, I thought, no, he can't be gone. Like, don't remove him from my life. And I kept that toothbrush there for a whole year. And I still have some of his favorite hoodies in my closet because that's my choice to make.
Yeah.
And I needed that sense of, choice and agency. And that was kind of robbed from me, as was my whole life at that moment and my future. So it's like these, what people might think of these little things that actually are really big. And it magnified that grief and that pain in the moment.
Which again, well-intentioned sort of thinking.
Yeah,
it's good and what should be versus what is bad. Oh, we don't want her to suffer more. We know that we know the best. We know what's best, and how that ultimately wasn't helpful. And potentially, you think like if you could offer somebody advice, like would it be for somebody to have come to you and said, "Nat, what do you need in this moment?" Would that have been something? What would advice be for somebody that maybe finds themselves trying to support anybody, not just somebody grieving with a death, but when you're dealing with grief?
Yeah, because honestly, I get that in that moment, we may seem very helpless and completely immersed in our emotion. But I really think it's important to still validate that person, ask them, what do you need right now? And even if the answer is, I don't know, look, at least you asked. Or you don't need to say anything, you just can be there. Your presence and your love is important, or even just practically, right? There's just so many different ways to show up. But I think it's just really dangerous to assume. I think that's really the lesson learned here. And you can't assume anything because everything is so heightened. And this person, or me at the time, was on survival mode. And I just felt like my whole world fell apart. So I would just say be sensitive. And, it's even good to like, if someone doesn't know much about grief, which is fair, like, have we prepared for it? Really? No, unless you've, someone that's gone through it, right? And I remember having conversations with you that you're like, whoa, I'm learning so much about this. And I think if you know someone that has just suddenly lost someone in their life, it doesn't take long to Google it. How can I show up for someone that's going to be grieving? What to say and what not to say. And this is actually kind of funny. I just remembered this. I actually did that 4 days after myself. And I found this chart and it said what to say and what not to say. And I group messaged it to everyone. So again, I had to edge it. But it's so sad that on top of everything you're going through, the weight of then communicating that and going, well, this is how you should treat me now, or be sensitive. It's not fair. And I was mad. I was like, you should know. Well, you should be a bit more sensitive. It's disappointing.
It is.
But along the way, I think the right people that continued to show up started asking questions, started learning and navigating that whole thing a little bit better. So I will say it didn't just end badly, it just took time.
Well, and it seemed like, again, I thank you again for sharing your story with me, but just seeing how people often projected their thoughts and emotions onto you instead of going like, oh, wait, maybe I have more capacity to have a space where I process this independently from that. But instead, I'm so sad, and I'm like kind of how it was impacting them. I think that just observing, even still now, helping kind of take your aspects of how you're moving forward and kind of feel a bit more than maybe they should, I suppose. Yeah. And just, I'm sorry that you had to take on all of that plus everything else. So
yeah, you hit the nail on the head by mentioning right now how they were feeling. Because perhaps, I will be honest, at the time, I was grieving so immensely that, only months after I was like, they also had a loss. They lost a friend. They lost someone special to them too. So that's where that grace comes in, because, in their grief, were they thinking straight? Were they showing up like they would have normally? So it's complex.
Yeah, I was going to say that to the complexity, because it's like this is all in retrospect too, right? Like in the moment I mean, as someone who would want to support too, it's like you might be thinking, well, I don't want to bother her with questions because like she's grieving, so I'll just leave her and do what I think might help. But yeah, that's just the complexity of it, where it's like everyone is doing something for the first time or in a space that they're in for the first time. And that is just tricky, I guess. Like there will be mistakes made and things said that are like not, and you only kind of learn that by experiencing it, unfortunately, and like figuring out who you are and what you need, like, because you wouldn't have known that in a sense. You would have had to learn what you needed and like how to stand up for yourself.
So true.
That
was a huge discovery, actually. Like, what do I need in this moment? And advocating for myself.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot. Yeah. And the other side of things was, as you mentioned, the platitudes and the spiritual bypassing. That was huge. Again, people mean so well. I say that like only because like it's a real, I wrestled with people's intentions and they were like, but this is all from love and I'm praying for you, and at least he's in a better place, and at least he didn't suffer, and at least you had 13 years of marriage. Most people don't get that. And it actually got really mean at some points. Like, that was rubbed from me. You don't need to then cover up this tragedy by at least, because that's a huge form of gaslighting. It really is. And it's because people are so uncomfortable with the pain. That's really the core of it. And they want you to feel better and they want to fix it.
Yeah, because for their own comfort, unfortunately, like that's selfish.
Yeah, and that's like, what about, okay, I have to live with this forever. You can kind of go, I'll be there and then I'm going to live my own life.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately.
Yeah. Almost like if you don't know what to say, actually, like, just don't say anything.
But
like,
so true.
Yeah, like, please. Thinking of you, like, thoughts are, like,
simple is sending love.
Yes. Well, and it was interesting just contemplating, like, you had this framework that should have supported you. You were in a church community and you have great friends, and just how some of that actually wasn't helpful, that the church potentially doesn't have the language for some of this, and all of the shoulds and all of the best intentions. I think the next part of this, like, talking through this podcast, we're wondering, like, how you kind of had to abandon some of that because it was keeping you, they were putting you back in a box, sort of like, okay, this is how you need to go through it, even though nobody had experienced what you had before. And how my observation is that you had to sort of break free of that and go, okay, you're telling me that this is good or this is bad, and yet none of that is really accurate. I'm going to have to pave and forge a way forward that is different and for me, and trusting how you were seeing things and how you were actually interacting with what was going on. So do you want to sort of guide us through how you had to break free from some of that and how you had to make choices that were for you and other people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What was incredible, I think, I'm really proud of myself for this part, is that as I was navigating those real sort of first months of this tragedy and loss, and sort of figuring out, like, who am I right now? My identity, because that changed extremely. I'm no longer, in a wonderful marriage, because it was pretty good. And, married with 3 kids, and it got flipped upside down. And then suddenly my identity and the stigma is I'm a widow. And so, unfortunately, it's a very heavy stigma, because I naturally felt this weight, this heaviness of this dark cloud. Like, suddenly you're like discarded in society. Like, everyone's going to feel sorry for you. Everyone's going to go, oh, poor, like pity. And unfortunately, it kind of flips this. And I say unfortunately because you get this resilience and strength. I'm going to prove them all wrong, which is a cool thing to have. That fire stirred within me. But man, that was exhausting. I was just like, I guess because I had to advocate for myself, I started to go, no, this doesn't feel good what you're saying to me. And I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to say, please don't say that. And I had to stop going to church because that became too painful, because it wasn't a loving environment. It was just minimizing what I was going through. And I could see the eyes that were looking at me and just too much joy and happiness, even though it was almost like, no, I actually want to sit in this pain, but you don't. And so I had to then, kind of live my life differently. And I made those choices really confidently. And I said, no, like right now I need a good friend and they're going to come over. We're going to talk and cry for 3 hours. And that was so life-giving to me and so uplifting. And I could be real and raw and I didn't feel judged. So I created my own safe spaces. And so I realized along the journey that just because this happened to me doesn't mean I've lost myself. Actually, I'm finding myself. I have a new beginning to embark on. And what's that going to look like? And that was actually very complex. There was a duality to that. On the one hand, everything I'd known had been like messed up and gone. And so it's like, whoa. And then I'm like, well, how do I rebuild? And there's a new beginning, but I have no control over the outcome. And so that's where people would come along and have their little opinions or help me and be like, well, you should do this or you should do that. And again, they meant well, but I'm like, no, I need to have this assertiveness and self-awareness to know that I can still make choices for myself. Though it's really bloody hard to be a solo mum of 3 and navigate this alone, I was like, I can do this. And it means, daily showing up for myself and making choices that were pivotal. And I'm sure you guys are going to ask me about this a bit later, but it's everything from like me wanting to find love again and navigating the dating world, which, oh my gosh, I have some stories. But to also, my career, my day-to-day life, how I balanced that whole existing pain and loss with new moments of joy and dopamine that I really needed because you're on like your baseline's down here now and you really need that to keep you balanced. And so made some mistakes. Well, I wouldn't even call them mistakes. I honestly think I surrendered to the experiences I had and I let them unfold. And through those experiences, this is where I am today. And so I can look back on them in those different moments and go, that's what I knew at the time. That's what I felt at the time. And they're the choices that I made. And there's no shame in that. Even though I could have done things differently in retrospect. I go back to the Nat 2 years ago. It's more so not regret or mistakes. It's moments of going, oh, I could have said this and that would have been a bit more empowering. Or I could have made this choice and walked away. But I did. But that's
I don't know. You know.
I know.
And your bravery, and you got out of bed. Like you did not let life continue to happen to you. It's incredible. Like it's super inspiring. I mean, for me to hear you continue to like tackle things and then again to sort of like the shame, like I had an interesting experience watching just somebody kind of interact with aspects of like your dating story and how they're like, oh, like these guys. And yet it's like, absolutely not. There is no shame in that because that was your way forward. And as you kind of rediscovered who you were, like, do you want to talk about, I thought it was interesting just you admitting, like nobody admits this stuff about widow's fire.
Oh, like,
again, like, but these are things that are real that nobody talks about and that need to be talked about because that's a real thing. I mean, I experienced an element of that after separation, obviously very different circumstances, not extreme, like the extreme that you would have felt, but because nobody discusses that, you don't know how to then deal with it. And the fact that it's a very natural thing that you kind of have to engage with. So as you're like, okay, this is a void, how do I cope? And you need to rebalance, then you had to make different choices that some would have said were bad.
100%.
and you unequivocally went forward and knew that they were good and right for you. So yeah, do you want to walk?
Yeah, I almost feel like I'm testifying in front of a jury right now. Okay, here we go. No, that's good. You put me on the spot, girl. Nah, I was going to chat about this anyway. Widow's fire, OMG. Gosh, I hope my mom's not listening. Wait, she's a widow too. She probably can relate. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
Sometimes don't feel like licensed to talk about this, but you think of your sweet daughter, like, and maybe this is too close to home, but if she ever was faced with something like that, like, what is the truth that you would want her to know? And to go, it's okay, I see you. You are feeling this, and sometimes you can't deny that. So maybe from that lens, which again, embarrassing, but real. Like, nobody talks about the real stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the core of that, I think, I want to sort of share as to why it happens. Widow's Fires is an educational moment for everyone. It's also, I think it's common sense, but a lot of people don't think about it. So they're quick to judge and go, well, that's really reckless. I've heard that word, reckless. That's against your Christian values, just things like that. Yeah, so what's interesting is that, when you're in a really great marriage and you have that intimacy on a regular basis and that connection, and that's suddenly ripped away from you, you're left just in a shamble going, well, biologically, this is a core need that was being met and now it's not. And yet I still love this person and I will forever love them. So there's not that disconnect, perhaps, that you can relate to. Like if you go through a separation or a divorce, that gets lost along the way. And there's a distance there, and there's, a lot of healing that needs to happen and all that. In my situation, it was like just, night and day. And I was like, well, that's not tangible anymore, but I'm still feeling this way.
Yeah.
And then there's a sense of betrayal. Like, am I betraying my husband that's passed away by still having these desires and going, well, no, I'm human and this is normal. And that's exactly what Widow's Fire is. It's like, it's a real deep desire to connect with someone because you pretty much lost your best friend. You lost so much. And you just want that again instantly. But it doesn't happen instantly. That's a whole another level of like what I had to go through is learning to rebuild new relationships from scratch. I was thrown into the deep end of dating suddenly while still feeling married. So I'm like, what is this?
That's a
really interesting.
My like headspace to be that. I read something recently where it was like, it said grief is like having love that has nowhere to go. So every time you feel it, it's like the love that you have stored for this person that has like nowhere to go. But then also talking about like grief is sort of a bit of a taboo topic in society, but then like desire alongside that, like that wouldn't just kind of, I feel like, navigate like everybody's expectations that they had for you, even with like a timeline and how long you should wait before, like how did you find all of that, like other people's, we kind of touched on it, but other people's expectations, but even like how long you should wait before you see someone or those kinds of things.
Yeah, everyone has a different timeline for sure, different ideas. I got the extremes and I think I was biased to the advice that I listened to, I'll be honest. But, you hear what you want to hear. I had friends that were, you know what you want, what you need. If you are ready to date or make connections, then go for it. Actually, that was pretty fair, right? And that was a very supportive thing to do. On the other end, it was, no, you are now technically a virgin again. How does that work? You gotta wait till you get married. Really? Is that how it works? I didn't know that. I want to debunk that. But that's a fascinating thing. So it is.
But like that, what like your framework for how you approached, like, let's say marriage or relationship back like 13, 15 years ago, and you were thinking about getting into this relationship.
Yeah.
So different than now. And that's your only frame of reference from personal experience, but you can't just go back there to an entirely different person and different place in life. And juvenile, like that's been interesting when we kind of get this advice that people mostly are coming from that place instead of going, no, she has 3 kids. She's lived an entire life. She has needs. She has like a true desire, and you're a woman. Like, so that doesn't apply anymore. Yeah, and that's interesting to see, again, people without the same experience as you, or even sometimes ourselves, whatever that is, putting us back in a place that we have outgrown long time before.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, that's exactly it. And I realized I had a lot of love within me that I wanted to keep emulating. And so it didn't have to be so black and white, like that ends. Now I need to let go of that love and move on and find something new. They could both coexist. And I'm still feeling that way, that whoever I'm with and love in the future, I'm actually in a love triangle forever. It is. And it's cute and it's beautiful and it's sacred because I don't have to let go of that. I have a heavenly marriage in a sense, and I have a present relationship, which I do now. But no, going back to the whole dating journey, yeah, I don't know. Actually, now I'm shocked because I've gone back and I told you this, Micah, that the way I journal is through voice notes. Yeah, like the ones that you record yourself. And that's just the way that I externally process. And I kind of validated myself. So I recorded hundreds of them. And I recently started listening back, specifically to 2021. So I did go on the dating apps like 8 months after, which a lot of people thought, that's way too soon. So you get that extreme going, that's way too soon. Like, and I got horrible comments like, are you over your husband already? Have you already like gotten over that? I'm like, you don't have to. Again, I had to educate and sort of say that's not how it works. And then on the other extreme, imagine this, like I've been in a relationship for now almost a year, but before that I got people going, aren't you married yet? Like, haven't you met someone yet? So it's either too soon or what's wrong with you? Why are you still single? You can't win. But no, on a more serious note, the hardest part is when you do actually find a connection. This is hard to talk about actually. And you become very vulnerable and you expose yourself. Now, I wasn't fully aware of maybe how I could be taken advantage of as a widow. And, I met someone that I had a 7-month kind of long distance connection with, and I did fall in love, or what I thought was love. Because now, again, in retrospect, I think maybe that was more of a trauma bond. But still, I know that what love is and what love isn't. And so, yeah, part of that was very, very real to me. And it lasted for about a year and a half. And that really kind of fucked me through. I'm just being honest. It's hard to kind of even express that side of things because sometimes I try and sort of brush that off and go, I'm fully healed. It's fine. Everything's good. I'm in a much better place. And so that's me gaslighting myself. But really, that was very hard. That was hard because I felt like I was 20 again. I felt like this was my first love, part 2. So, Gareth was my first love, the real one, and I married him and everything went great. And it's like my whole life got reset, but it didn't really. Now I'm in my mid-30s and I have 3 kids. Yeah, everything's different. You're not 20 anymore and you're not looking to build a whole new future from scratch. You've got so much experience now.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that was a blessing as well. I'm like, I have all this experience of a relationship dynamic that was really good. So that's an advantage or that's a blessing to someone potentially. And I have 3 kids that I never saw as baggage or a burden. They're actually precious cargo. So I thought and expected that others would see it that way too. And boy, was I surprised to meet a whole variety of guys that were in different stages in their life. and this one that I just mentioned was just one experience, but that was very pivotal for me.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of healing. But other connections and experiences gave me more self-awareness, made me realize what my needs were, not to shame myself for being lonely and wanting that in my life. Because, I had my identity as being a mum, but suddenly I'm not sharing that role, right? I'm not parenting with my husband. I'm doing it all alone. So I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Of course I wanted to escape. Of course I wanted to live my life. And dates were fun.
Oh.
And those friendships that came from there, because I friend zoned nearly everyone. Sorry, guys. But I actually realized that, I knew my value and worth and what I was looking for. And if it didn't fit, I could filter it out. Yeah. But I actually met so many amazing people. And they were genuine and great. They just weren't for me. And I was just like, well, can't I be friends with them? Can't I like play sport with them or hang out? Well, that's not how it works exactly. Can't just be friends like that. But anyways, at that time I was living in that bubble. So I'll be honest, it served me and it was great and it was just what I needed. And so, it's messy and it's complex, but it's kind of like, I'm proud of myself that I knew what I needed and I went for it. And I knew I needed to do that to become a better mum and to keep my sanity. Actually, I'm on survival mode.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit more, because we had one interaction where you had to leave a gathering. We were just hanging out as girls and you're like, okay, I got to go home because your daughter needed you. And in that, I was wondering if you wrestled with that idea or just the fear of, I don't want to be a bad mom. What does a good mom look like in this situation, or even any situations of staying home, cooking all the meals and caring for their every need. And then you also sharing that your therapist, to which I think your daughter has one as well, told you just a little anecdote about a fruit basket. Do you want to share that a little bit, and just how your needs matter as much as your children's needs, and that you actually can't serve them or be a good mother to them without dealing with your own stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful for the therapist that I had, because she became so incredible to my healing journey. She really made me feel seen and heard and understood, so validated, so much empathy, like such a beautiful person. And, along that journey of sort of really exposing myself, because it felt very safe to just share everything and anything. Sometimes it was literally just about my love. It's not even about grief, literally, but that's okay. That's exactly what I needed at the time. And she was, helping me navigate that. What ended up happening is the other side of my life. I was almost dividing it. I was like, well, I'm a mum over here, and that's really important. But I'm trying to find my new identity and sense of self and my needs, and find passions and joy again of who I am alone. Because unfortunately, I'm never going to have what I had before. So who am I as a single person right now, as a mum of 3? And it's not the same as single parenting. A lot of people would compare and go, I'm also a single parent. But they would have an ex that also supported and had time, or, co-parenting and all that. I'm literally on my own. And again, I've said it before, it's exhausting being a widow for so many different reasons. That's really one of the biggest ones. No breaks. You're like full-time switched on as a mom. And my mum came from Australia, and she's been here on and off for 3 years helping, and that's been incredible. Couldn't have done it without her. Also has come with its own difficulties and tensions, because 2 women in the household trying to raise kids with different generations, different values, right? Different people, just completely different responses to stress, different things, we're coping with every day. And so my 3 kids were then left gone, well, who's the boss? Who's the mum? Who do we listen to? I felt like my sense of autonomy was taken away from me, and I'm just trying my best. And I'm going through all these emotions, and I might be reactive sometimes. I might lose my patience. that left me feeling like, am I a bad mum? And here I am going away for a night in Whistler because I'm going bike riding to do a bike ride to honor Gareth, or going away for a ladies' night here and there because I needed that. I really needed that. And at the time I was like, yeah, should I be doing this? Like I started second guessing myself, because I think there's this expectation that, yeah, that has to be your priority and that has to come first. But if you do that like fully, and I'm just like switched on and mum mode 24/7, which is so unnatural. You're not supposed to do it alone. Let's be honest. I would have abandoned myself, and I would have, been a very different person. Very stressed, very anxious. Like at least I know, what my triggers are.
Yeah.
And when I know that, I'm going downhill, I'm like, I need a break, and I'll communicate that, and I'll be like, I really need to get out and move. A lot of the stress and grief is held in your body. So I started playing sport again, badminton, volleyball, which also honored my dad because we did that together. And I started realizing that these little outlets were so crucial for me and my healing journey. And I think that is relevant to anyone in their life, even if they haven't lost someone. You got to divide your life. It's kind of like a pie chart. Do things that are life-giving with friends. Do things with your significant other. Do things with your kids. Be alone as well.
Yeah.
Have time for your faith and what's important, sort of your values. And so I started to actually section it off like that and go, well, there's too much of this and not enough of this. And I started to really, my perspective on priorities changed because it had to. Yeah, so that was huge. And so
you modeled that for your kids too, even like in that pie chart, you would have had your therapist too. And then for your kids to also have like, okay, so mom's doing all these things. I can also get support, not just from you, but from elements in life too. But I thought, do you mind sharing?
Oh, the fruit basket. Yeah. That. So that's, sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Right.
But that, so my daughter obviously and this impacted her so much because she was 9 at the time. So she really needed therapy or counseling, probably more so than my sons at the time. And she still has it right now. And it's been really good because what she was going through, poor thing, going through, all the hormones, becoming a teenager, that's so hard and scary. All the changes. And so it was a wake-up call for me because she was really struggling. And I was trying to be present, but I was also on survival mode myself. And so how do you balance that? And so I actually went in on the therapy sessions with her, which was really good. And her therapist advocated for me and sort of explained, see it as like your mum has a fruit basket. And it's on empty a lot because she's giving you guys the fruit all the time. Who puts the fruit back? And my daughter, bless, she was like, me. And then she's like, no, you guys take it. You eat everything and then you want more and more and more before your mom even has a chance to like refill the basket. And then seasonally, it's different. I kind of took that thought further and I'm like, well, during the summer, the berries get filled up because there's blueberries everywhere. At other times, it's harder. That fruit basket is slowly filled because it's just harder. And the seasonal situations in life, right? And circumstantial. But that was a huge turnaround for my daughter to learn empathy, to sort of perhaps put herself in my shoes, which she should, so unnatural, right? She should never have to know what that feels like. She's gone through more than a lot of kids and so the veil has been lifted. It's almost like me and my family are just living on a different frequency because of this grief and love.
I was just gonna say, like, so many of the normal expectations, like what a good mum or what a good, like, those have just not applied to you.
No.
Then you have to still deal with the same recourse from people despite being in a completely different place. I remember us having a conversation about mum guilt too. Like, what does even a good mum look like? Or like, I remember asking you, so do you kind of just feel a lot of mum guilt? And you were just like, oh yeah. And in a way, have you sort of just had to sort of accept that almost, that like there'll always be something that's probably inadequate because in a way, like doing it alone is just not how it started and not how it should be in a sense. But like I remember you telling me as well that I don't think you mind sharing this, like at the beginning, like you were sort of more focused on trying to help your kid do everything because like just feeling for them with their loss, and then realizing they need to be able to do stuff themselves as well and be like less dependent on me. And just the stuff that you've kind of had like learned and shared with me. I'm like, that just, you're amazing with like what you're doing. But in a sense, it's just does it feel like constantly sort of dealing with a sense of guilt, or not anymore?
I think it's less, actually. I think that has changed, just like grief changes over time. Initially, you're right, I was navigating the grief for them because they're not emotionally mature enough. And so, I'm sort of, again, helping them process their emotions and their feelings or how they're suppressing it and trying to like bring it out. It's hard because you're doing that for yourself and for 3 little humans. But I would often catch myself and think, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I enough for them? Actually, that's a big one. That's a big one because, they miss their dad. So often if I was grumpy or stressed, Daddy was more fun than you. Why are you having fun? I'm like, bloody hell, I'm on survival mode. I can't right now. I'm barely waking up and taking you guys to school. Like, give me a break. But then I'm like, well, of course, what they're feeling is valid. But it's hard to hear that. And it's so real. So much. And I just think of like somebody like a Christian would just say, well, just pray more, rely on God more. Like, but that doesn't, God's not showing up and giving your children the hugs that they so desperately need and a comfort that they need. And that can be so difficult when the whole thing is too much for one person to bear. And that's the reality. Like what we have to offer is never going to be enough. So you have to learn a new way. And I mean, just the other day, you sharing that you, kind of like what you were saying, you live on a different frequency, but also that you said too, also that you almost like live underwater now, that you had that story was beautiful. Like, again, the things I've learned and that you've shared with me are so deep. So what did you just share? No, thank you. Yeah, that was really cool actually, because I'm inspired by you too. I think as creative minds, we have a different way of maybe expressing ourselves. And I often talk in analogies, right? Like, what does this look like? What's the visual representation to how I feel and express my emotions? I really love that side of us being human, is that it's so great. And the complexities and the beautiful visceral emotions we feel, and there's no good or bad in the sense, it's just, it is. And that what I said was like, often there's this stigma or this saying where, there's waves of grief. That's a beautiful way of saying it, but I think that's a real stereotype. There's waves of grief. Yeah, it's linear and this and this and that. And I was like, okay, there's waves of grief, but what does that look like and feel like? Well, when those waves come crashing on you, you're drowning and you don't have anyone to rescue you. But sometimes you do. Sometimes you have one of the buoys or the life rafts come your way and your head's above water. And other times it's unbearable and you're literally drowning. And so in the moments in like the last 4 years, there was harder times and easier times, more bearable, and other times where it was so difficult. And I literally felt like I was drowning. So I just thought, well, why didn't I drown? Was it because I was always being rescued or holding on to something? No, I actually just surrendered and almost like let myself sink underwater. But I learned how to breathe underwater. In a sense, I thought at first I grew gills, but I was like, ew, that's not a fish. No, I became a mermaid. I like that better. But it was, again, I had to adapt and evolve. the way I lived my life. And so I think it's almost like I gained a superpower. I could breathe underwater and learn how to survive something so, tragic and be okay. It didn't always have to be like my head's, and above the water and a storm. Could you imagine how rough it is? And this is even surfing. Like, I got slammed by a massive wave in Oregon, and that was scary. And you come up for air and it's like all chaotic and crazy and bubbly and you're like gasping. But actually when you're underwater, it's actually peaceful. As if you can just be in that moment, actually there's so much clarity and just you're present without the pain and the calm at the same time. So it's actually, I kind of almost want to paint that somehow and go, that doesn't mean you're gone. That doesn't mean you've drowned. You've actually just found another way to survive.
Yeah. I think like through knowing you, I feel like you're someone who has truly been able to sort of have that balance of like holding pain and joy. And I feel like in a society that the society we live in likes to switch to one extreme or the black and white or the binary, or like it can't just be pain. It has to be, or it has to just be pain or it has to just be joy. But I think you are someone who exemplifies the ability to me of being able to sort of just like hold everything and still pick out experience the grief and give space to those feelings, because it's just as valid as like the joy or love that you have for your kids. And then even speaking about Gareth, like the way you speak about him and look back on your special relationship with him while also being in a new relationship. Like there's just, there's so much going on, and it's like a kaleidoscope almost of colors. And I think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. You're so right. It's like those emotions and feelings are going to coexist forever. I'm so aware of it. And so I'm not going to let the joy delete the pain. It's actually one of the most beautiful things about grief is that it's worse and it's harder and it's deeper when you really love that person. Grief is a representation of love, essentially, and that love that has nowhere to go. And so it's actually quite sacred. So if people want to take that pain away, please don't. It needs to be there. It's just, I'm not ruminating in it and I'm not letting it steal my joy. They're just coexisting. They really are. So, I can have my triggers, the anniversaries, the birthdays, the sad moments like Father's Day, and I can feel this sense of overwhelm and miss him immensely and have my tears. And then I can also laugh and be goofy and silly. And it's both true and real at the same time. It's not one or the other. Yeah.
Well, and it's so much, that joy going forward is propelling you into your future, which I know we spent a lot of time talking about your past, it's just different relationships and your mothering experience, but I know how much you hold your future and how tenderly, even just the new relationship that you have, how much hope and joy you find in that. And I know how special that is for you, and I want to honor that. And yet I know that there's so much unwritten there. And yet you're taking these massive steps and being, again, so courageous and going, I know this is my way forward. And it is drastic and it is stretching. I know you have to make a big move, really. My goodness. Yeah. We do have to at some point end this podcast, but as we're thinking about your future, like let's cast that a little for you and what you've had to strip away. Even today, talking a bit about conversations that are difficult. Again, people putting you back in a box and going, peace looks this way, or this is how you should feel. Well, what does that really look like for you in these moments?
Yeah, because honestly, moving back to Australia, which is my second home, and I'm 50-50 with this. I don't want to leave, but I do. So I'm torn, and it's like I'm letting go of 14 years of my life and a future, again, that was robbed. But at the same time, it's the new beginning. And so you're kind of wrestling with this, letting go and then a new future. And I should be excited. I also should have peace. I'm saying should in, in a sarcastic way, because often people will encourage me and be like, well, we always knew you were going to move back. Well, I didn't. So you obviously knew before I did. Good on you. Or, yeah, you must have such peace with this decision, or you should have peace because, if it's God's will and all that, then no, it's not like that. It's hard and there's a lot of emotions, and it's like, let's not take that away from the human experience. I'm moving countries, and the logistics of that is so stressful. They said that moving is one of the most stressful things in your life, which is kind of the second one, because the hierarchy of that is obviously the grief and loss, but it's also not just moving, it's moving internationally, all right? So there's a difference, and everything's going to be new, school for the kids, a new place, new relationship to explore, and that's an exciting journey. But there is some anxiety and fear, and I think that's really natural. I just don't want that identity of fear to kind of overtake me. But so I'm wrestling with that literally currently. It's not easy. And so I think it's important to just let myself feel it and have those moments where I'm like, what am I doing? It's not even like I'm trying to sabotage it or second guess myself and go, oh my gosh, am I making the right choice? What is happening? It's not like that. It's more so, there's so much unknown, and I just really have to surrender to it. Maybe perhaps the more I surrender to it, it's like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it's not just rose-colored glasses and peace and fluffy stuff. Like, there's going to be hiccups along the way. There might even be moments where I'm there going, I want to go back, and that's okay. I'm just being really real and vulnerable back to myself. It's like, now this is hard.
Well, and your history would just show again that you show up, right? You are so courageous, and you do have such strength that whatever is the good and right choice right now, it truly is. You've just seen that that's one proven thing, that you will tackle it and you get through it.
Leap of faith.
Exactly. Actually turn it into something great. And that's been I mean that every time I see you, I love being around you, because you are a deeply joyful person, even given the difficult circumstances that you're in. And that is inspiring to me, not to, again, bypass what's truly going on, right, but to have a great sense of knowing who you are, which is kind of helping me, and probably you too, and trust ourselves more, and to go, regardless of how everyone else feels about the situation, even those close, like your mother or your children, continue to trust yourself to move the program forward and your life forward, which is so inspiring. And I mean, one of the reasons we had you, we're hoping to have you on this podcast, is because you're considering doing one yourself. And I cannot wait, because not only are you so eloquent and well-spoken, I mean, you make times look like not.
I'd have sworn a bit more, but I held back.
I was kidding. Fuck yeah, I do. I'll do it for you. But we seriously can't wait. And thank you so much for, being a part of my life briefly. And Mike.
I know, you moving is definitely a sad thing. But you're coming back in a year and visit. Yeah, for sure. You guys should visit me. Send each other voice memos. Well, see, it's a beautiful thing. Let's make the most of technology. I'll conclude with one little thing.
Thank you.
Because I forgot to mention it before, and it was actually the first thing I wanted to share, which is funny, but actually it's so appropriate to end it with this. Kind of cliche, but it's so true. The way that I'm living my life, and I've chosen to emulate that love and have the courage to move forward and embark on a new beginning, is because more than anything, I've realized how finite and fragile life is. And we're not, obviously you've heard it a million times, we're not promised tomorrow. So many of us know that, but we don't live it. And so we take things for granted, and people, and we're so, content living in this bubble. But perhaps if we shifted that mindset and just became a little bit more intentional, it would just change everything. It would change how we show up. because it is such a gift and a miracle to be here. I'm still breathing, so I have purpose and I have passions to explore and people to love and things to do, and I won't give up, you know? Yeah, I think Gareth would have wanted that for me. So, and my dad, I'm so proud of you. I know it. And I know you will be so proud. And often I feel like it is trauma that teaches us that like mortality, you know, and because that's what my trauma has taught me as well. Like that, not everything's guaranteed. There's no guarantees in life. And I feel like that's why we need people like you who have that perspective as well, and especially being a creative person, like reflecting that in just the way you live, like that's so visible. And even if other people are not quite there yet, being able to grasp that fact, like I think that's why sharing stories is so powerful and important. And thank you for sharing yours with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We love you.
We love you too. Yes, please keep teaching us all. Like truly, we really do. We can't wait for your podcast, because what you shared today, I think it has to.
Pressure is on.
No, but like in the best way. Like just that's unfortunate.
I need to do it.
Well,
I really do.
And this crazy life that you've led, like it has the potential to, and I know that's incredible burden and something that is almost too much to ask, but if you feel it within you, does it ever help us to know, even just to make space for grief and to know how to interact with it differently is so valuable. And that's what your story.
I think you guys are like a segue for me to start that journey. So I thank you.
Well,
it's literally, I think I can leverage my story of pain and loss, to like help inspire healing in others. Even if it's just a few people, it doesn't,
that's all it has to be, right? That's what we always said. This was more for us than if.
Exactly.
Oh, it's creativity. It's a great place to be, and then the pressure is less, and and the power of story is great. So thank you so much for sharing yours with us today, and thanks to everyone who was here. And we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks, Nat. Thanks.